Hi everyone, Gundam here for our 51st and brand new episode of our special edition Lore of the Universal Century. Today, we're going back again to the late UC in an attempt to answer our particular question, which is... Yep, in this video, we're going to explore the history of the F-91 own girlfriend, its mechanical lore, variants, and extract every bit of mechanical knowledge we have on them so far. But let's start by the beginning. What is exactly the Vigna Ghina? Codenamed XM-07A, the Vigna Ghina, normally pronounced Vigna Ghina, was a prototype commander-use mobile suit, engineered by the Batch Concern conglomerate company in the early stages of the Cosmo-Babylonia War. A suit manufactured to serve as a next-generation commander model for the original iteration of the Crossbone Vanguard, the Vigna Ghina was a refined and luxurious machine, specifically designed for the upper echelons of the noble organization, aka exclusively its highest commanding officers and the ruling Ronah's family. As a result, the Vigna Ghina was designed as an extremely high-performance and elegant mobile suit, mixing beautiful and inspiring aesthetics to state-of-the-art balance and versatility, all combined to be worthy of the high noble that would get the chance to pilot it. To achieve this, the Vigna Ghina was outfitted with a certain number of innovative high-mobility technologies, which coupled with its miniaturized size, granted the princess-like machine rather remarkable abilities. As a main new feature, the Vigna Ghina came equipped with a new kind of propulsion system called the fin nozzle, a technological evolution to the highly successful shelf nozzles pioneered by the preceding Berah-series. Made of the combination of 8 state-of-the-art thrusters, each mounted its own fin and each capable of independent articulated movement, the fin nozzle provided the Vigna Ghina with an absurdly high degree of additional maneuverability, while also functioning as precise and minute embark actuators as if the Ghina was equipped with 8 supplementary limbs. Unlike the previously used shelf nozzles, the fin nozzles had also the advantage of being connected directly to the Vigna Ghina generator, nearly nullifying transmission losses while also distributing the load exerted on the suit equally, drastically improving the thrust-to-weight ratio. Aside these new signature assets, the Vigna Ghina could also rely on more basic but also state-of-the-art technologies, boosting improved main thrusters, a next-generation high-capacity generator, increased propellant reserve, and overall optimized body parts, giving it performance-wise abilities similar to the infamous Gundam F-91, said to have reached the limits of mobile suit technology as of the early UC 120s. Ice on the cake, like all Crossbone Vanguard commander machines, the Vigna Ghina was also outfitted with a beam flag emitter, a costly and very fancy equipment enabling it to serve as a battlefield standard through its flag-shaped beam. Last but not least, the Vigna Ghina also ditched the binocular gas mask dual-eye camera, used by most miniaturized Crossbone Vanguard suits to serve as an exotic alternative to dual-eye camera systems, while coupling with flashlights, instead adopting the costlier but far more impactful traditional Gundam eye dual camera system, albeit covered by a protective clear visor. All these things, combined with a signature loadout made of a custom beam rifle and a new beam shield, eventually made the Vigna Ghina a state-of-the-art creation, arguably the best Crossbone Vanguard mobile suit at the time, alongside its twin sister the Vigna Zirah, until the advent of its own successor, the Vigna Ghina II. Despite its destruction at the hands, or should I say tentacles, of the immensely powerful mobile armor Rafflesia, the Vigna Ghina would leave quite a legacy behind, becoming Berah Ronah's mobile suit of choice for the entire Cosmo-Babylonia War, while spawning even more advanced successors along the way. But that's enough setting for today, let's get to our lore. The year is Universal Century 120. At that time, the Anti-Earth Federation organization known as the Crossbone Vanguard was biding its time, preparing its forces in the shadows to strike at the Federation at the most opportune moment. The secret private military of the influential and noble Ronah's family, the Crossbone Vanguard was a force founded to fulfill the dream of the family's patriarch Maestro Ronah, created to take control of the newly constructed frontier side of Site 4 and turn it into Cosmo-Babylonia, a new utopia where nobility would rule on the account of them risking their blood and lives for the commoners. In preparation for such long plans and awaited takeover of the frontier side, the Crossbone Vanguard would however still need to fix the massive manpower difference between them and the now mostly stagnant Federation forces, with the Ronah's family providing its heralds with a much needed tide-turning asset. This asset was the supply of the Crossbone Vanguard forces with the products of the Butch Concern conglomerate, a small but highly successful technical think tank owned by the Butch family before the acquisition of the Ronah's family name. The Butch Concern, divided amongst other affiliates between Butch Aerodynamics, a proper mobile weapons industrial R&D department, and Butch Junk, a spill salvaging company, had been highly active since the early UC 90s, biding their time for nearly 30 years while salvaging, experimenting, repairing and expanding on both Federation and old Xeon designs, while also dealing with anime electronics and the scenery to steal or extort some of their own technological secrets. The result was Butch Aerodynamics publicly presenting their first miniaturized mobile worker, the DESA type, around UC 121, while having in secret completed a militarized version since the mid-UC 110th, the XM-01 Denanzon, a miniaturized mass-production mobile suit coming with a beam shield, various inbuilt assets, and a new signature handheld weapon, the revolutionary Shot Lancer, designed for optimized colony combat. Despite the Denanzon being widely superior to around 90% of the mobile suits available to the Federation forces at that time, the Butch Concern still continued expanding its research, resulting in the creation in UC 117 of a new line of Commander mobile suits even more powerful than the Vigna-series, the Berah-series, introducing their innovative shelf nozzles assets. By UC 122, the Crossbone Vanguard forces numbered around 100 units and thus an entire arsenal of Denan variants for their lowly grunts, with each platoon coming with its own Berah Dallas commander unit. However, the Berah Dallas, despite its performance, was however found to be beneath the rank of the Crossbone Vanguard highest commanding officers, not special enough to be worthy of serving as the riding seat of the Ronah's family members that would wish to lead their forces from the front line. Despite the creation of more advanced variants, the Berah Gyros and Berah Balus, the Vigna-series was thus considered inadequate for the use of the Crossbone Vanguard top leadership, leading to a brand new mobile suit development plan. Labeled as the Vigna development project, this new mobile suit R&D effort was thus kick-started with the aim of creating a new series of commanding models for the Crossbone Vanguard's upper echelon, superseding the Vigna-series in performance and technological refinement. The exact details on the historical schedule of this project are murky to say the least, with very few details being known about it as on its inceptions and results. What is known, however, is that the Vigna project eventually split its development into twin separate parts, the early Vigna type being not a single prototype ancestor, but rather two related yet very distinct sister machines. Both these machines were themselves based on the high-performance reconnaissance suit known as the XM-06 Dagi Iris, developed around the same time and freshly completed, improving its general frame and overall design while coupling it with a new type of generator derived from the Berah series. The first of the Vignas was a machine specifically designed to take into account new technological trends that were still alien to the Butch Concern, a mobile suit based on Earth Federation's stolen secret technologies, the XM-07A Vigna Zirah. Unfortunately for you for now, but fortunately for you later, I'm not going to cover extensively the Zirah in this video, reserving it for its own development video, with the Zirah having a fair amount of lore I don't want to brush over in the video that isn't exactly his. For now, all you need to know is that the Vigna project's first spawn, the Vigna Zirah, was the result of the project inner developments coupled with technology developed outside of the Crossbone Vanguard think tank, introducing experimental Vazburs, an optional Gundam head and shoulder fins, all created thanks to stolen data of Shinri's Formula project and shared blueprints from Anime Electronics' Silhouette Formula project. We'll expand on that in a future video. The second of these sister machines was instead designed to achieve its high performance by relying on building upon the innovative designs that were developed by the Butch Concern exclusively, such as the nozzle technology, the mobile suit that interests us today, the XM-07A Vigna Ghina. Before we start explaining the Vigna Ghina in details, I want to slightly ponder a bit more about the relationship between Vigna Ghina and Vigna Zirah, the two sister machines sharing a bit of contradictory lore.
Newer sources, such as the Mobile Suit Bibles, portrays clearly the development tree of the Vigna line, with the Zirah being detailed there as being one of the earliest Ghina modifications and seemingly one of its spawns. Other sources instead clearly claim that the Zirah was completed around the same time than the Dagi-Iris, the Vigna Ghina's own mother suit, which means that the Vigna Zirah can't properly descend directly from the Vigna Ghina, but could at the very best have been completed right next to it with a lot of sheer technology and designs. But let's go back to the Ghina, shall we? A luxurious piece of technology, even more than its sister the Vigna Zirah, the Vigna Ghina was from the start created to emphasize balance and versatility over brute performance, with its core bodily design, while extremely high performance, being rather bland and lacking gimmicks in the first place. This was however pretty much intentional, with the crown feature of the Ghina residing in its own backpack signature asset, the fin nozzles. Like we said in the intro, the fin nozzles were a massive upgrade over the common shaft nozzles used by other Crossbone Vanguard mobile suits, granting the Vigna Ghina its outstanding maneuverability and mobility, but were at the same time a costly creation that had been in development for nearly 25 years at the Bosch concern. The earliest incarnation of this technology was first completed and displayed around UC96 in the manga version of Twilight of Axis, where the Fallnaught, the final equipment type of the Gundam Tristan, was equipped with a very early prototype version of the Vigna Ghina's fin nozzles, and set on to fight on the account of Berah, the private militia that paved the way for the proper Crossbone Vanguard army. This early uncrewed version, however, differed quite significantly from the final end result of the Princess suit, being integrated in a separate backpack rather than being plugged directly to the suit generator, while only boarding 2 thrusters per nozzle, exposing them outside the frame. Why exactly did it took nearly 30 years for this backpack to be refined and upgraded remains a mystery, with 2 theories possibly coexisting in the lore. The first is that the fin technology was simply too expensive to afford and miniaturize, eventually leading to the creation of the inferior shelf nozzles, then wing-type shelf nozzle by the era of miniaturization, which then in turn provided the know-how to revamp the non-miniaturized design of the fin nozzles in their much more effective final incarnation. The second theory, which I advocated in my Erebados video, is that the fin nozzle was a dead end due to its non-miniaturized design, up until the Crossbone Vanguard's secret sponsor, the Jupiter Empire, provided them with the blueprints of their own shaft nozzle equipped model, the Erebado, which enabled the Bosch Council to create their own version of the nozzle technology, the shelf nozzle, and later on improve and redesign it to revive their own fin nozzle, which were an in-house development rather than being Jovian inspired. But enough nozzle stories for today. In its early incarnation, the slowly produced Vigna Ghina was not yet outfitted with its signature fin nozzles, with the Princess suit temporarily using a weaker and more standard backpack with 8 shaft nozzles for the time being. This early version of the Ghina, exclusive to the F91 prequel manga, would then be tested around early UC 123 by Crossbone Vanguard pilot Anna-Marie Bourget, with Anna-Marie conducting various tests with the machine in preparation of the Frontier Side invasion, including under Minovsky interference and with no radio communications. Because the machine was entrusted to her by Ronah personally, Anna-Marie would come to believe that the almost completed Vigna Ghina would then be given to her as a personal reward for testing it, which eventually came down crashing, while Doran instead revealed that the Ghina was always meant to be for its sister, Ronah, only rewarding Anna-Marie with the command of her own reconnaissance team and a brand new Dagi-Iris, which Anna-Marie felt pretty much frustrated about. Before you accuse Anna-Marie of lacking some brain cells, the Vigna Ghina's sister, the Vigna Zirah, had by that point been assigned to Ace Pilot Shelf Sheffield rather than being taken over by a high-ranking Crossbone Vanguard commander or a Ronah's fledgling, which means there was a pretty strong antecedent for her to cling to her hope. In any case, this misunderstanding, coupled with the start of the Cosmo-Babylonian War, the retrieval of Berah Ronah, and finally Anna-Marie's love interest, Ace Pilot Sabine Charus setting its sights on seducing Berah for political gain, eventually led to the young woman become disgruntled with the Crossbone Vanguard, better explaining her eventual defection in F91. By the time Berah Ronah was finally found and convinced to join the Crossbone Vanguard forces as a figurehead, her grandfather, Maestro Ronah, gifted her with the now completed Vigna Ghina, as well as naming her his heir, entrusting her on the machine to Sabine Charus to train her in basic mobile suit piloting and space combat. At that point, Neither Berah or the Vigna Ghina were ever expected to really fight in the war, being mostly sent out to boost morale near the front line so that Berah could be used as a figurehead. This, however, came down crashing during a sortie in Frontier 1, where Berah Ronah eventually entered combat with a Federation Gundam F91, leading to a brutal duel which resulted in the Vigna Ghina's chest being damaged and Berah discovering that the enemy was actually piloted by her thought to be lost boyfriend, Cyborg Arno, leading to tearful reunions and Berah defecting from the Crossbone Vanguard, bringing the Vigna Ghina with her. Now a member of the training crew of the Space Ark trying to escape the Crossbone Vanguard and resist them, Berah Ronah would then remove the Crossbone emblem from a Vigna Ghina to show a new allegiance to the Federation, and would have her mobile suit repaired, replacing the melted chest part with a new more square-shaped design provided by the Federation. Berah and her modified Vigna Ghina would then be used to great effect in these early hours of the conflict, with Berah using the native Butch Concern OS of her suits to protect her and her allies from the new genocidal drone bug unleashed by her own father Carrozzo Ronah. Unfortunately, Berah and her Vigna Ghina would then be unable to stop the sortie, then rampage of Carrozzo and his brand new mobile armor, the Rafflesia, leading to a brief confrontation between father and daughter, which led to the Vigna Ghina being torn to shreds and destroyed, and Berah being thrown away in space. Rafflesia would then engage the rescuing F91, almost making it share the same fate that the Ghina, until Cyborg was able to confuse it with its afterimage MP effect before striking it down. Cyborg would then rescue Berah and return them both to safety, leaving the destroyed Vigna Ghina behind. Despite the loss of the sole prototype, the Vigna Ghina's line was far from being extinguished, with numerous development of it being created as the Cosmo-Babylonia War continued. During Berah Ronah's brief stay in the Crossbone Vanguard as princess and heir before her defection, her being assigned to the Vigna Ghina didn't went unnoticed, the Butch Concern engineers immediately starting working on a special variant tailored for her under a new role as a figurehead. Codenamed XM-07S, the Vigna Ghina Berah Ronah Special was this brand new machine, remaining surprisingly similar to the original Vigna Ghina, while revamping its external aspects through light cosmetics. First and foremost, the immaculate silver and purple scheme of the original Vigna Ghina was ditched, being instead replaced with a red and black assortment of colors, a color choice already extensively used by the Vigna Zirah and his descendants. In addition, beautiful gold markings were also added to the Berah Ronah Special, adding to the ornate design of the mobile suit. Mechanically, the only change applied to the Berah Ronah Special was a change in its camera system, ditching the Gundam Eyes camera under a visor to instead adopt the signature gas mask goggle camera, probably as a symbol of solidarity to the rest of the Crossbone Vanguard forces. In terms of operational history, pretty much nothing is known about the Berah Ronah Special, with most sources pointing to the fact that it was either never completed in time or never made it to Berah due to her defection and was thus never used. I've heard some talks about how the suit would have eventually been used by her later on during her return as a leader of her loyalist Crossbone faction, but since we don't see the suit in any of the Crossbone entries, I'm not putting too much faith in this theory. But let's move to a way more impactful Vigna Ghina's variant. As the Cosmo-Babylonia War raged inside the Frontier side, the Butch Concern slowly but surely continued its high-end mobile suit development projects, learning from their early mistakes and lessons taught by the war to pump out even higher performance suits than the Vigna Ghina or Zirah. One of such lessons was the one taught by the sudden appearance of the Gundam F91 in the early stages of the war, with the Gundam being theoretically matched by the early Vigna models, only to then reveal astonishing and surprising abilities, thus making the enemy Gundam far above their leagues. To palliate to this issue, the Butch Concern made it a priority to obtain sensible data about the enemy F91, a strategy which bore its fruits as the Crossbone Vanguard was eventually able, either by industrial spying or backroom deals, to gain access on actual combat data of the F91. With this data at hand, Butch Aerodynamics eventually kickstarted the second phase of the Vigna development plan, using the original Vigna Ghina as a base to develop the B-type version of the Vigna-series, the XM-07B Vigna Ghina II. A mobile suit directly developed from the classic Vigna Ghina, retaining most of its basic bodily design in the process, the Vigna Ghina II was, however, a machine far more shaped by its direct emulation of the enemy Gundam F91,
being the closest thing to a fully fledged Crossbone Vanguard Gundam before the advance of the Crossbone Gundams. First of all, in a similar fashion to the Vigna Zirah optional equipment, the Vigna Ghina II reintroduced many traditional Gundam elements to the Vigna Ghina design, featuring this time a proper Gundam head, coming with unexposed dual-eye cameras, the signature chin, and of course a pair of iconic V-fins, also this time under a Crossbone Vanguard emblem to signify its true allegiance. Much like the original Vigna Ghina, the Vigna Ghina II retains the use of exposed power cables over its shoulders, while equipping a set of 2 cooling fins per shoulders. These fins, based on the one featured in the Gundam F91, were actually directly developed from data about the F91, thus serving the same role as heat dissipators and cooling protrusions. Like the F91 fins, the Vigna Ghinas had a certain degree of mobility to improve overall maneuverability, but couldn't be retracted inside the shoulders, a feature from the F91 that was lost. Over the Gundam heads and fins, the more drastic innovation brought out by the Vigna Ghina II was its brand new backpack mobility asset, a new incarnation of the nozzle technology called the Flexible Wing Nozzles. A pair of Vasper-like wings mounted on the Vigna Ghina backpack and directly plugged to its generator, much like the Vigna Ghina fins nozzles, the Flexible Wing Nozzles were a technology seemingly inherited from the Vigna Zirah Vasper backpack, teaching the variable speed cannon of each wing to instead install even more thrusters and verniers. Now with a total of 10 high-performance thrusters on its back, 5 per wing nozzle, the Vigna Ghina II completely outclassed its predecessor in terms of mobility, with the new rearrangements of slightly more numerous nozzles in 2 wings rather than 8 separate protrusions, greatly boosting its movability for high-speed combat. Even better, while the original Vigna Ghina could only boast on paper of having 8 additional M-back limbs, as its fins had poor movement axis, the Vigna Ghina's 2 wings were this time fully fledged and reliable additional M-back limbs, enabling it to change course, dash backward, or turn itself upside down in mere seconds only through their use. Aside this, the Vigna Ghina II also introduced some additional trinkets, including a boosted beam shield with an improved output, capable of serving as a beam blade, and a standard shot lancer, making it the first Crossbone Vanguard mobile suit capable of going toe-to-toe against the feared Gundam F91, possessing similar if not slightly better maneuverability at the cost of reduced firepower. Development-wise, the Vigna Ghina II is also said by some sources to have been developed not only from the standard Vigna Ghina, but from the Vigna Zirah as well, mixing the best features of both mobile suits, aka the Ghina fin nozzles and the Zirah wing backpack, into the successful Vigna Ghina II. Production-wise, it is unknown how many Vigna Ghina IIs were produced by the Dutch concern, although most sources confirms at least 2 units made it out of the assembling lines. The Vigna Ghina II gained its red colors as it was initially supposed to be assigned to the Red Vanguard, a Crossbone Vanguard squadron that already tested the Berah Balus and the Vigna Zirah. According to Kunio Okawara, the Vigna Ghina's mechanical designer outlaw, the Vigna Ghina II was probably taken over by Dorel Ronah as a replacement for his Berah Dallas, although no records of him using it exist aside Okawara's statement. What is known, however, is that both Vigna Ghina IIs managed to survive the Cosmo-Babylonia War, with one of them entering during or after it in the hands of ace pilot Sabine Scharre, the former Crossbone Vanguard soldier, using it as his personal mobile suit until UC-132. At that time, an alcoholic and recluse Sabine would be approached and challenged by his old rival Sibok Arno, who wanted to recruit him into Berah Ronah's reformed Crossbone Vanguard, leading to a duel between Sibok and his new Crossbone Gundam X1 and Sabine's Vigna Ghina II. Although Sibok remarked that the Vigna Ghina II still held an edge in terms of mobility, the maneuverability was by that point firmly in favor of the Crossbone Gundam, although it wasn't exactly put to test as Sabine hosting colony eventually tried interrupting the duel to force Sabine to stay, forcing both nemesis to team up. Sabine would then join the Mother Vanguard crew, bringing his Vigna Ghina II with him, before trading it for the Crossbone Gundam X2. Interestingly enough, Sibok's words at the start of the duel clearly showed the young pilot was already familiar with the Vigna Ghina II, but through his reactions and Crossbone Gundam flashbacks, it doesn't seem he ever fought Sabine in this particular model before said duel. This could support the statement that Dorel piloted the Vigna Ghina II during the war and that Sibok fought Dorel during that time, with Sabine's Vigna Ghina II being either Dorel's former unit, either another Vigna Ghina II that fell in his hands during or after the war. Either way, Zabin's Vigna Ghina II would then disappear from records, being likely given to the Scenery in exchange for the newer Crossbone Gundam X2 that Zabin would become infamous for. Another Vigna Ghina II, instead said to have been captured during the Cosmo-Babylonia War, would also fall in the hands of the Scenery, until the events of Crossbone Gundam Steel 7 would force the unit out of retirement. As the remnants of the reformed Crossbone Vanguard, Jovian Defect Team Dev Guild team and some Scenery personnel joined up together to form the Steel 7, a 7-man suicide squad formed to stop the returned Jupiter Empire from firing their new colony laser, a need for high-performance suits started to cruelly become a priority, especially for some members of the team. Although the Scenery was able to repurpose and enhance the personal Jovian mobile suits of 2 out of the 3 Dev Guild defectors, the leader of them, Giri, was left without a proper mobile suit, his own Quartz having been destroyed years ago, and his replacement Quartz mass production type having been lost days before the departure during a skirmish on Earth. To address the issue and with no time left to repair the Quartz, the Scenery would bring out the second Vigna Ghina II out of the naphthalene, proposing it amongst other suits to Giri before customizing it to improve its abilities for the brutal final confrontation ahead once Giri gave them the go. Now dubbed the Vigna Ghina II Jupiter Battle Specification, this Vigna Ghina only modestly revamped the original design of the XM-07B, mostly only changing its armaments to suit the current needs and Giri's personal combat habits. First and foremost, the enhanced beam shield was sacrificed for the Jovian developed Snake Hand, a special weapon introduced by the Vanguard-series and thus extremely deadly in the hands of Giri. The Snake Hand was a sort of long metallic tentacle, dense and large enough to be used as a close combat whip to bash enemy around, and articulated enough to be able to provide excellent coverage to the user. Ice on the cake, the Snake Hand was finished at its tip by a special beam emitter, capable of emitting either a beam shield or a circular beam saw to turn enemies to shreds, while also getting the option to throw said beam saw as a mid-range projectile. Aside this rather significant change, the Jupiter Battle Specification also introduced a slight modification to the Vigna Ghina's 2-shot Lancer, giving it the option to mount a total of 5 small nuclear warheads meant to cause maximum damage to the Jupiter Empire colony laser. Now an integral part of the Steel 7, the Vigna Ghina II Jupiter Battle Specification Giri on the riding seat would perform its duty admirably during the final battle against the Jupiter Empire forces, serving as the main attacker of the group. Despite Giri's best efforts and amazing skills, the Vigna Ghina II would prove to be not enough to counter the Callisto brothers and their new Dictus machines, leading to the Vigna Ghina II being dismembered, but then sacrificing itself to charge the colony laser, exploding with Giri on board, slightly deviating the colony laser position, thus sparing her from its precise and calculated shot. And with the heroic sacrifice of the Jupiter Battle Specification eventually ended the Vigna Ghina II and the whole Ghina lines, thus turning the once antagonist Gundam type into a real hero suit, worthy being called a Gundam in its own right. This video sadly comes to an end. Marco and Code out.
But who will survive?